Not since the earliest days of the COVID-19 pandemic have relations between the U.S. and China been this cold. Even before the latest set of retaliatory tariffs, Beijing has, for months now, been slowly and methodically limiting certain U.S. exports. NewsNation's Joe Khalil is live in Washington. So, Joe, what's the state of play as another week begins now?
Well, with these tariffs back and forth between the United States and China, Kelly, it's basically a who is going to blink first situation. And you're right. I think it's fair to point out that we've had tension between the U.S. and China, perhaps none more so than right now, ever since the beginning of COVID. That's where relations may be right now. President Trump, as we all know, has slapped a 145% tariff on everything coming in from China. China has, in response, slapped something like 135% tariff on all imports from the United States. Part of the case that President Trump has made is actually the same case President Biden made, which is that there are certain industries that are crucial for our national security that we simply cannot rely on China to be making for us. Things like medications and important medicines, things like military weapons and vehicles and raw parts for those types of things. And of course, microchips. These chips are important. They're in virtually everything that we use. So there has been this argument that we cannot rely on China and that in that sense, tariffs make sense. What is different now is the fact that the Trump administration is also tariffing our allies. There are concerns that certainly I have heard on Capitol Hill from Republicans and Democrats about whether our allies would support us in a prolonged trade war with China or whether they would lean toward China in some cases. We know the Chinese have actually reached out and have tried to court some of our trading allies, not just in Europe or in Canada or Mexico, but Vietnam and other places in the Southeast, in the Pacific region as well. So those are the kinds of concerns right now that make this particular moment extra tenuous and tense between the two global superpowers. And we will see in the next coming days or weeks how these tariffs play out, whether any get rolled back and exemptions, as we've already seen from the Trump administration. But certainly when you talk about the global situation, these are the two behemoths to be watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And switching gears just a bit, Joe, new media reports now raising questions about the timeline of the first COVID-19 cases in China. What more are you learning on that front?
Yeah, so from our sources on Capitol Hill, we have now gotten this two-page report that was sent over to the Senate and House Armed Services committees, basically outlining that back in 2019, before the world knew what COVID was, there were these sort of military Olympic-type games in Wuhan, China. And the Trump administration and the Biden administration both said they had no evidence that any of our athletes or service members got sick with COVID symptoms. This report appears to directly contradict that. It lays out seven service members that did have COVID-like symptoms back in October of 2019 who were participating in these games. That is significant because it is just a reminder of the fact that China has not been transparent and open about when the virus started to spread, potentially how it spread. So these are things that, again, are just a reminder of who the U.S. is dealing with in terms of the lack of transparency. COVID was obviously now several years ago, the origins of the outbreak, but as we deal with this trade war potentially between the two countries, it's just another reminder of the sort of ill will that we have seen over the last few years, Kelly.
Yeah, certainly is. All right, Joe Khalil, thank you.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.